right,
I'll give you a call from my desk anyway.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say something funny on this.
You can.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Dynamics Corner. Brad, do you know there is roughly 1.3 million Christophers in the United States? I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on March 24th, 2025. Kris. 1.3 million Chris's in the United States. That's a lot.
28th most popular name.
Really? What's the first most popular name?
I have no clue. Bob. Probably.
We'll have to look that up. And if anybody looks that up, please share it with us. With us today, we had the opportunity to learn about large numbers. We also had the opportunity to learn about Community Summit and also some tips of what not to do in Business Central. With us today, we had the opportunity to speak with Chris Warren.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, good morning,
Hey,
sir.
good morning, guys. How are y'all?
Say that again? I'm talking to myself.
Oh, it's all good.
There you
Good morning.
go.
Cool. Y'all can hear me okay, right?
Y'all? I say y'all now. I sent a text message to we have a family group chat, and we were talking about something, and I said something to my family. I said, y'all don't know about this, or yes. Then my brother said, oh, he's a true Southerner now, because now he threw out his first y'all.
Everyone's going country, man.
I've loved country music for many years, but now I'm starting to pick up some of the lingo. I like it. And
Well,
Yeah, y'all's not a
Yeah.
a good term to start using. It was funny. I actually had my previous boss told me, he was like, "You can't use y'all in company emails," and I was like, after that, I made it a point to use y'all as much as I could in every single company email that I sent.
Are you a rebel?
Depends on how you want to look at it.
Don't tell me what I can't do. So, do you know, I love ice cream. I'm super excited.
For
because-
breakfast?
No, I love ice cream.
Yeah, what?
There's nothing like New England ice cream, because New England ice cream stands. I realize in the rest of the country, you have ice cream shops. You don't have ice cream, what I call ice cream stands. So
Sure.
you go to small farm area. I don't know where you are, Chris. I know you're out in the backwoods too. I don't know if they have them up in your part of the country, but I thought it was more of a New England thing, where you go to the small ice cream stand, and it's usually homemade ice cream, and you get like a homemade waffle cone and some great ice cream. And it's not chains. It's typically family run. And I had ice cream. I was back last week, and I had ice cream every day. I think one day I had ice cream twice. And I'm talking a big waffle cone with the various flavors, and I always get a topping.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up ice cream. My wife is actually in Houston right now, and she went to the Bluebell factory. She went and did some 5K there, and she actually got, this is at like, I don't know, this is like 8 o'clock in the morning, and she was able to get a picture with the actual original Bluebell truck.
Oh, wow. See,
So Bluebell, I've never heard of Bluebell before. It must be...
Bluebell, I don't know where they're originated, but yeah, I don't know. That's my wife's favorite ice cream. So she.
I thought you were going
is
to
having
say
it.
that you're making your own ice cream because you have a farm. So
This is where I was going with this, because I don't, the store-bought ice cream, I don't like the store-bought ice cream. If I buy anything at the store, I get the Tillamook or whatever it is. What is it?
Sure.
Tillamook.
Yeah.
Tillamook.
That's
That's
out
the only
here.
ice cream I buy at the store. I bought an ice cream maker.
Yeah.
It came in yesterday, and not yesterday, it came in over the weekend, and I mixed up 2 batches of vanilla ice cream. Today, I wish it was ready because I would do it now, but today or tonight, I'm going to try my first ice cream. I got the Ninja that does the soft serve and
Did
the
you get
scoop.
is it the slushy, or which one did you get?
I got the Ninja Creamer.
Oh, the creamy.
Yes. So it has the soft serve, and you could do the scoop, the hard.
Mhm.
So I'm going to try soft serve, and I'm going to try the hard. I did just vanilla because it's like pizza. You have to start at the base. If I can get vanilla down, I'll probably never go to the ice cream store again. And Kris, just watch out. Well, you both, Kris, but you can both watch out. This guy's going to gain some pounds because if I can make my own ice cream like the ice cream stands back home, forget it.
Well,
It's
at least you know what's in those ice cream because you're making it. Because we did the same thing. We were making our own ice cream, and the problem I had with it was we made too much, and so
You
'cause
can't have too much ice cream. That's
I don't
impossible.
eat enough ice cream, you know. But
Oh.
at least you'll know what you're putting in it. I think that's important.
I was thinking of getting extra containers so that I can have more in the freezer. But the way that it works now, it's better off with what it is because it will control what I eat. I've told you, I had ice cream twice in one day. And I'm not talking like a little bit. I had lunch, and then I went to the ice cream stand. Then I had dinner, and I went to another ice cream stand. So,
But I think it's the process that makes it very interesting because then you're not just buying it now and then just like just eating it. Now you get to appreciate the process. I mean, that's no different of me making sourdough bread right now. I'm making my starter and then going through that process, and it's a lengthy process. So I'm sure ice cream is gonna be the same thing. It's a
we'll see.
process.
Well, yeah, it depends. Listen, I did vanilla, I just mix it up. But if you start hearing me talking about waffle cones, you know it's all over. If I'm making my own, because I was spoiled because last week I also went to a great barbecue place. I always say back home. Kris knows what I mean. It was a great barbecue place. But now that I smoke food, and I smoke just about every day, I couldn't eat their food. Like it just didn't like. It used to be amazing to me. I'm not saying it was bad. It's just I've become accustomed to my own food and my own taste. So now I prefer to
You
eat
criticize
pizza.
food more. I don't know if that's happened to you yet, where you like order a barbecue or even like whatever ribs or pork belly, and then you order it and you spend like $15 for like 4 pieces, and you're like, I could make a whole bunch more for cheaper, and it tastes much better.
$15? Where are you getting this from?
The-
When I go
the-
to eat to any
Washington
barbecue
State
place,
is
it's like
expensive.
30. It's like $30 per person. It's way more expensive down here.
Oh,
When you going out to eat is different than at home. And going out to eat, I do enjoy going out to eat because I like the experience. I like oftentimes I'll pick a place that has a nice scenery, and I like to try different things. And also, if you're going with somebody, you can step away from home and not have the home obligations or the home things on your mind, and you can get away. But once, Kris, like you were saying, once you have your own food, it's great. And then when you start seeing also, because I do the same thing, I'm like, I can buy 2 racks of ribs for this. And okay,
Absolutely.
if I just made this with the smoked sweet potatoes, with the smoked broccoli and all this, I'm like, this would have cost like $3,000.
Yep.
And you get your own taste. And like I said, it's nothing bad about the barbecue place because it used to be my favorite barbecue place back home. And I just now am spoiled because I've become accustomed to my way of making food. Well,
yeah, well, you talked about cooking at home. Since I moved out here to this little farm that I have, it's funny because one of the very first purchases that I did was I ordered over 200 pounds of charcoal, and it was delivered via forklift to my front door. And I was at work when it happened, and my wife was like, "What is being delivered to our house right now?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you, I ordered a bunch of charcoal." But it is. It's just so much easier, and everything tastes better when you cook it at home here.
Oh,
it's not even worth going out.
It isn't in a sense, because if you have the proper location, it's nice to just sit in the backyard, smoke some food. And I smoke everything now.
And it's funny because when you say smoke, you're smoking every day. It's not that kind of smoking, right?
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm not. I don't smoke. No,
it's
absolutely.
Food.
Yes, smoking food. I smoke food nearly every day.
So I will say you have to be very careful when you're in work meetings and you say you're smoking meat. because oftentimes people think that you're smoking weed as opposed to smoking meat. I'll never forget, like, one of the first times I was at this company, I was in a meeting. I was like, people were like, what did you do this weekend? And I was like, oh man, I was like, I smoked a bunch of meat over the weekend, and I went on for like 5 or 10 minutes talking about it. And literally afterwards, my boss pulled me aside. She was like, why were you talking about smoking weed in the meeting? And I was like, what do you mean? I was talking about meat. And he was like, oh, he's like, everyone thought you said weed and not meat.
Oh man, yeah.
Well, it's good clarification, and I get to talk. We have several individuals that also enjoy smoking meat, so we have some good conversations about different recipes. My next one that I want to do, I love smoked bacon, I love smoked pork, I love smoked mac and cheese. I've been doing it. I'm going to make smoked bacon, pork, mac and cheese. And
oh, this is a good combination, man.
That is a great put a nice crust on top. That's my next thing I'll make. I have to see when I can make that. Maybe I'll try to make it this upcoming weekend. But
have you ever rolled a fatty?
I'm assuming you're referring to like a pork
counsel has
pork.
advised me that answering that question would violate the rights granted to me under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Therefore, I respectfully decline to answer that question. Next question, please.
It's a crosshatch of bacon, ground sausage, and then you throw in some potatoes inside of it as well, some eggs, some cheese. Then you roll it all up, and then you smoke it for like 6 hours.
Yep.
I will tell you, there isn't one person that I know that I think if you said, are you going to smoke a fatty, that they would think of what you just talked about, just to let you know. But we didn't get here today to talk about food. As much as I would love to talk about food, I'll have to follow up with everyone about my ice cream adventures. I am super excited to have that this evening. And Kris, maybe I'll take pictures and send it to you.
Nice.
You'll see. I was thinking of putting in some Reese's, but that's not why we're here together today. Mr. Kris, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Kris Warren. I work for a medical device manufacturer, and I inherited our nav environment back in 2018, I want to say. I am not really in the IT field by degree. I actually got my degree in electrical engineering, but we had some turnover at our company way back when, and my CEO came up to me one day and he literally just said, hey, he was like, what do you know about ERP systems? And I was like, absolutely nothing. And he was like, well, great, you're going to learn about nav. And so I ended up taking over our nav system, kind of, understanding how it impacted our business. And I got to kind of figure out, how each department was using it. It really wasn't optimized for our business process. So I spent the last few years, going through and making sure that it really aligned with, how things were operating at the company. And then my big thing that I've always been passionate about is getting current and staying current. So I actually took our NAV 2017 environment. We went from NAV 2017 to BC 20, 21, 22, 23, and now we're actually on track to go to SaaS later this year. So
excellent.
Yeah, my big thing is really, I love Business Central, I love NAV, and I like staying current. So I've really just kind of made that my passion over the last few years.
Excellent. And one thing that's amazing about Business Central is the community that we have. And you also do quite a bit for the community, and we all know about that. Can you tell us a little bit about your role and your contributions to the community?
Yeah, so back when I took over our nav environment, our partner had actually recommended that we go to Summit to kind of learn about Business Central and get some training there. So I went ahead and went to Summit in 2018 with about 5 of my other coworkers, and every year since that year I went to Summit, I've actually gone back and spoken and taught classes about that as well. Just about lessons learned, things I've been doing with our nav environment. And in 2023, 22, 23, I actually became a member of the Business Central Board of Advisors through Dynamics Communities. So I've always made it a point to try to give back where I can, and just talk about things I've learned about, and but yeah.
Well, excellent. Congrats. You're doing some great things. And
Thanks.
you're chairing the board of advisors, if I stand correct.
That is correct. Yeah. So back in my first role was the I think digital marketing or something along those lines on the board, and this last year, starting in January, I became the chair for the board.
Excellent. So you're doing a great job with that too. It is important to give back. I found as I'm getting older, I see the value more so maybe than when I was younger, when I was charging through life, and I get a greater appreciation for everything, and just coming back and even seeing just to help somebody or help somebody solve an issue that they're having, or help somebody come up with a decision, or even just help somebody in general and just share some knowledge. It is also a two-way street. I learn a lot by doing it this way as well from others. So
I commend you have a chair there, Kris, because that's a lot of work. I think people don't realize how much work it gets put together, and so putting volunteering your time to help kind of facilitate all of that, so that the rest of the community can take advantage of all the education and leading up to summit. It's a lot of work, so we do appreciate that.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. It's, to me, it doesn't really seem like work. I like I said before, I didn't know anything about ERP systems back when I started this role, and now that I know what I know now, I really have to just look back and say that I learned everything I did from the community that I'm now helping foster. I if it wasn't for Dynamics Communities, there is no way I would know as much as I do now. And I wouldn't have been able to meet, such great people like, both you and Brad as well.
No, I appreciate that. I do want to plug in a little bit on here. You know, working on Summit and putting the committee, working with the committee and such. I do want to put a little bit of plug. They are bringing in. I know you're helping with this too, Kris. Is the local user group chapters, so you can have your little chapter community within your area, within your city. So if you are interested, they can certainly reach out to you, right, Kris? And
Yeah,
anybody else in the
absolutely.
department. We need those back.
No, well, it is. It's the support groups in person are important. I know there's a lot of information online, but there's something about getting together with individuals and sharing information.
I also love how you called it a support group and not like a local committee or something like that, because sometimes it really does feel like a support group.
Well, as Kris had mentioned, he was getting into it. It does take a lot of work. So I was hoping to get a little behind the scenes of what it takes to maybe put together or plan some of these events. Kris, you'd mentioned the local user groups. You have the road shows. These are all part of the board of advisors and the various committees for Dynamics Communities for that section of Business Central. And it's not Dynamics Communities pushing this. They work with and they sponsor and they support the operation, but it's all run by volunteers such as yourself on the board and the program committees and all the local committees to do it. So when it comes to some of this, I know some of these events, individuals think that they just materialize and you come up and okay, we have all this information here about Business Central and we're talking about that. When it comes to Community Summit and the road shows and all now, as Kris had mentioned, everyone's looking to start up the local user groups to give additional support. When do individuals start planning the Business Central portion of Summit?
Yeah, so I mean, when you talk about Summit, it's funny because the actual planning portion of next year's Summit starts literally the day after that Summit ends. We have all of the these different committees and things, and everybody goes to Summit at whatever location it is, and while most people are there just to gain knowledge, people that are members of the programming committee are there, and they're analyzing every single aspect of that particular conference. They are trying to figure out what's working, what's not working, how can we make this better for next year. And I would say within 7 days of the conference ending, we are already putting together, committees to try to figure out, okay, how can we make next year even better than what this year was? So, when people go to these conferences, like you said, I don't think people realize how much planning goes into this, how much thought goes into it from all these local volunteers, throughout the community.
And with that, so the planning starts. What's involved with the planning? How many individuals involved with the planning, and what goes into it?
Oh man, our programming committee this year, I think we have, I don't know probably over 20, 25 members on it easily. And when people think about what goes into this, I mean, we have to figure out, how many sessions are we allowed to have at the conference? How many rooms are we allowed to have? Are we covering all the topics in Business Central, that people want to learn about? There's just so much that goes into it that I don't think people realize behind the scenes.
No, it is. It sounds like, and there's a lot of people, 25 people to go through the programming committee, to go through all of those submissions, which is...
Yeah, there's so many different tracks too. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Business Central is much more than just a standard quote unquote ERP system. I mean, you have finance, you have supply chain, you have manufacturing, you have, all these different modules in there, and you have to find subject matter experts, within every single portion of this to try to get them to submit sessions, just so that way they can share their knowledge with, all these people that are trying to learn about Business Central.
And how do the tracks get determined? You had mentioned there's a lot of various tracks, or there's many tracks. It's my first day speaking. There are many tracks within the Business Central portion of Community Summit. How do the tracks get chosen?
Yeah, so each of those tracks, so like I mentioned, there's all these different modules within Business Central, but from the programming standpoint of this, we have a lot of different individuals that are able to determine, what sessions are chosen for each of those tracks, and they fall within the, within the core modules within Business Central. And so, right now, these sessions, or the call for speakers, is open through the end of the month, so through March 31st. And so as people submit sessions, depending on which track that they're going to, each of those sessions is going to then be forwarded to those track leaders. And, they have to go through each of those sessions to determine if that's a good fit for them, and making sure that they're covering all the bases within, the different tracks that they're in charge of.
That sounds like a challenging task, with the number of submissions that are submitted.
Well, the tracks are growing too, right? So it's not just the modules itself, but then you have all the related technologies around Business Central, because you want anybody that, organization sending people out, not only learning about Business Central, but it's also its possibilities and capabilities of extending beyond the ERP. So I know you have some tracks and the other, other application, but that is a very difficult balance. Putting all of this together as people submit throughout the next few months here. I think that's important to consider. So hopefully we can get a lot of submissions to go through. Whoever's in the programming community side of that, I I thank you for going through all those tracks. So,
Yeah, Kris,
are you one of those?
I'm not. Just because I'm chair, so I do get involved with a lot of the different things, but I'm not technically on the programming committee. Kris or Brad, are either one of you guys on the programming committee?
I am this year again. So
how's that going for you?
It's going well. I mean, we just started ramping up, as you could say, because the call for speakers is still open. So all of the sessions haven't been submitted. I know myself, I have a few that I'm going to submit. So there's still time left. And I know a lot of individuals I've been speaking with are still trying to formulate what they would like to present or what they would like to submit to present. But it'll get pretty busy after the call for speakers is done, because this year I think the deadline for the programming committee to submit their selection for the sessions that were submitted, I think, is the end of April. I get confused with a lot of these dates so that they could have it published for May. So those that are looking to attend the conference in October can see and start to plan their visit to Orlando.
What do you think is going to be the what do you think is going to be the most talked about topic this year around?
Gee, I don't know, but I know what I hope it's not.
Go on, go ahead, say the word. I know what
I don't
you're both
want
thinking.
to. I'd like to go through one episode or one day without hearing the word, and it's not because I don't believe in it. It's not because I don't like it. I think that there's so much more to life than that, and I'm waiting for the limelight or a spotlight. Jeez, I'm gonna have to just stop me over today. I'm waiting for the spotlight to take off. It's AI and Copilot, but
you said it.
But also with that, if you look at it from the submission point of view, if everybody submits Copilot and AI topics, it becomes more challenging to pick and have a variety. So those traditional, what I'll call traditional type sessions, are also extremely important, because at this point, Copilot isn't or hasn't taken over the world, and it hasn't achieved the status of being able to do everything for everybody. So people still do need to understand the functionality. People still do need to do functions, maybe use Copilot as a tool to do their job and what they need to produce with output for their workplace. Those other sessions are still extremely important. So it will be challenging. I know going through the sessions and rank them is a little bit challenging because there's a lot to go through. There are a lot of duplicates, and I don't mean duplicates this verbatim, but sometimes there's duplicate topics that have similarities. So we have to sometimes determine what's the best way to manage and work with those. And then sometimes we'll take, if there are two sessions that are submitted that are similar, we'll talk with the two presenters to see if they'd like to co-present, because it gives them both the opportunity to present the session that they're passionate about or the topic that they're passionate about, as well as give maybe a different dynamic to those that are attending the sessions, because you can get two different perspectives in some cases for the same topic.
Yeah, you know what's interesting though, and Chris, I would like to hear your perspective on this. I know Business Central is continually having new features and things you can do with it. For all of us in this, we're having this conversation. We've been in the ERP space for quite some time now, and that at least for me, I tend to forget that we have to have sessions for even the fundamentals, because we know that the Business Central ERP continues to grow. We're going to have new people, starting their journey in Business Central, so they have to have those fundamental sessions as well. And so I think for me, that was my biggest focus in submitting my sessions, is all going back to the fundamentals of Business Central, not just the features. So Chris, from your perspective, you coming in, coming from NAV to Business Central, is there still an opportunity, like, hey, we should learn about these basic things of, like, how do you set up workflow out of the box Business Central? Maybe you don't need Power Automate and things like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of really what I've done over the last, I don't know what, like 7 or 8 years at this point, is just trying to educate my company to say, hey, look, this is what the system can do out of the box. We don't necessarily need an add-on. We don't need, customizations. Like, we don't need any of that. Just really understanding what the core of Business Central is, before making, huge business decisions is, I think, critical to deploying your ERP system and getting the full use out of it. Because, like you mentioned, those sessions about the just the bare bones, the basics about Nav and Business Central are really critical for people to learn, about the system that they purchased. And I think oftentimes it can get overlooked, when you go to Summit, because people want to really focus on, Copilot, or they want to focus on Power Automate, or, focus on all these other different aspects of Business Central. But I think a lot of times people do forget, the core of the system, about what it can do. So I agree with you with the fact that, these sessions are very important to make sure that, they're still there.
Yeah, it's certainly like for, a perfect example, it's like cash receipt journal. I was working with an organization where, they needed to go through the cash receipt journal. And in my mind, after hearing them needing to learn, I was like, how do you not know this? And I
Yeah.
had this pause and it's like, wait, hold on. I know how to do this, but these organizations are just starting their journey and they're learning their UAT. They're in the middle of their UAT, and so they have to learn those. So we, as consultants, we have to step back and say, okay, I can't make that assumption because there's a ton of people just starting their central journey. So we just have to, at least I have to remind myself every day.
That's an extremely important point that you make, because everyone's at a different point in their journey. So all of that information is important. And to have the opportunity, again, if you're somebody that's new to, like you mentioned, if somebody that may be new to the application or considering the application, to jump in it to see the basics sometimes is important, because that's the foundation of what's going to drive your implementation. I know I talk with many who like to share content and do and all these other types of events, and they try to focus on the most complex and the most, the hardest, I guess you could say, where sometimes you can't forget the basics, because with the application growing, in my opinion, I'm finding more and more people are newer to the application. I'm not taking away from those that have been using it for a long time, those advanced, and I'm not saying that's not important. But if we don't have any of that content, like you're saying, it's a challenge for those to get into it and grow into it and learn how to use it properly, because they're jumping into it thinking Copilot would do everything for them.
Yeah, exactly. So, Chris, do you think, because you had mentioned in your journey of Nav or to Business Central, in joining or attending Summit, do you believe that organizations that are still in Nav or other ERP systems should go to Summit before, maybe before they're going into the Business Central project or starting the Business Central project? Do you think it's a benefit for them to attend before, or certainly even after, right? Like, what can you get out of the most out of your Business Central? Was that a critical component for you, or joining Summit or attending Summit?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's funny. So I talk to a lot of different people, about our Microsoft journey, whether it's, going, just optimizing our nav system, or going from nav to Business Central. And I can accredit every single thing that I have learned back to Summit. And that's my number one recommendation to anybody who is either using Nav or Business Central, or either going from Nav to BC, or going from BC on-prem to BC Cloud. Go to Summit, because you don't necessarily you don't know what you don't know, right? And the easiest way to figure that out is to go to Summit, attend as many sessions as you can, and you will end up learning way more about Business Central and Nav than you thought was even possible. So yeah, 100%. I definitely recommend that, if you're even considering any sort of, optimization for your system, you're trying to upgrade or do anything like that, you definitely need to go to Summit, just because you need to learn as much as you can. And without actually attending, you're probably missing out on a lot of the feature set that the system offers, that you didn't even know was there.
Yeah, and I think it's also a good opportunity to speak to others that maybe already have gone through that journey of going to Business Central, and they are in a similar space or similar industry as you. It's also a good opportunity to ask how did they do it, or maybe a process that you're doing now in Nav in your current state. How do you do that in Business Central? So the good, perfect place to ask those questions, so that you're minimizing that risk, or falling into that cycle of things not working because you thought it was supposed to work this way. And so a good call out there, Kris. I mean, making sure that that's part of your investment, maybe part of your budget on the project, um, of sending people out to these conferences for sure.
Yeah, I always joke that I could write or I could have a session at Summit every single year on 101 ways of how to not use Business Central or how to not use Nav.
You should
just
do it.
because.
I think that would be a great session. You still have time. We still have time for you to submit that, but I think you should submit that. Extremely important to have 101 ways not to use Business Central or 101 pitfalls I wish I would have known.
Yeah. It's definitely it's funny if you don't understand the system. There are a lot of ways that you can misutilize it.
How hard can it be? It's my favorite question. How hard can it be? I said,
well, eight
why don't
years
you do
later,
it
and I'm still working on that. So
yeah. Well, so you mentioned that 101 ways how not to use Business Central. Can you share a couple of your how? We're going to twist this. Kris, you're coming next. You have time to think about it. But
please do not ever utilize both lot number and serial tracking at the exact same time for the same item. I don't understand why we did this or what the thought behind it was, but having to choose both a lot and serial number for the same item is insane, because if you think about it, right, you're getting the same information from either the lot number or the serial number. Why are we doing both? And so
I can't even think of a scenario where I'd want to do that either, because you're still getting the traffic, because serial number, you could say, well, you want the serial number within the lot, so you know which lot the serial number came from. But if you're already doing it serialized, you already have it because it's specific inventory.
Right, exactly. And so it used to take our quality department like 3 or 4 hours to create one production order, because we're a medical device manufacturer, so we have to keep up with the lots and serials of everything that we produce and also consume that goes into that finished good. But just because we would produce 100, 200 items at a time, they would have to manually go through and select every single serial number and then the lot number that was associated with that serial number. And within the first few months of me taking over our nav instance, I was like, why are we doing this? And nobody could give me an answer. So that, to me, that's like my biggest like. Right, exactly. So that's the thing is, it's always been done that way. So why should we change it?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I understand with medical devices, it's extremely important to track the contents and the output of the devices for health reasons, but you're still getting the same information.
Exactly.
Either you know which lot it came in, or the serial number. You'll know everything. You'll know more about the item if it's serialized versus within a lot, because it's a group of items.
Yeah, we anytime anything came in with a lot number or a serial number, for whatever reason, the original team that deployed our nav instance, they thought just because the information came in, we had to put it into the system. I don't really know why you would need to do that. So anything from like AA batteries to screws to nuts to washers, like just because it had a lot number, they thought we had to lot and serial track it in the system too. And so you can imagine, on a standard, just think of anything that you have sitting around your desk. Like there's probably anywhere between like 10 to 15 screws in it, holding it together. Can you imagine having to serial track every single nut, washer, bolt, screw that's in every single one of your devices when you're trying to manufacture it?
No.
Too much work.
So yeah. So anyway, that's definitely going to go on my list of 101 ways of how to not use Business Central.
Do you have another way not to use Business Central?
Yeah. Okay. So print. I don't know how y'all feel about printers. I mean, y'all are somewhat in the IT space, right? For whatever reason, everybody at the company thought that we needed to print every single transaction out that we did. So you post an item journal, you have to print it. You post, a purchase order, you have to print it. You post a sales order, you have to print it. And so like we literally just have books in our binders full of printed receipts out of Business Central for literally no reason. When, if you think about it, all that information is stored within Business Central, and just because you're printing it doesn't really prove anything, right? I mean, I could go back behind you and reverse that transaction or post, an inverse item journal or something like that. So printing things doesn't really prove anything, right?
Come to think
No.
about it, when I remember working at end user as a director of IT, the first thing I did was kill off the contracts of all the printing company or print devices that we would contract out. So I cut that and says, no, we don't need printers.
Well,
Yeah,
even if you wanted
I
to print
honestly,
it, you could go to PDF. I know early on, I've gone through some implementations, they wanted to print things to prove it was working the way they wanted to. Doesn't mean it becomes part of your process. It's just, I post an item journal. I want the output so I could validate that the transactions are posting properly, they look proper. But doing it forever, I don't even think anyone would go in and look at those again. Because even how would you find it? If you have
yeah.
a
So
stack,
yeah,
you have thousands of transactions. Okay, I
yeah,
need that paper right there.
yeah. It's funny. We're working on consolidating locations right now, and we have probably, I don't know, like over like 20, 30 file cabinets full of printed Business Central transactions. And I was talking to my boss, and I was like, I don't even know like what do you do with these? Because like you said, like you can't go back to like find them, right? Like how do you even locate the record that you're looking for?
I'd recycle them, save some trees, stop the printing. Mr. Kris Rieras, do you have any of the 101 ways not to use Business Central?
Oh
We're just
man.
totally twisting this right here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you are. I think one of the most common ones that frustrates me the most, it's not just someone coming from Nav. I mean, it could be any other ERP system, is when they have the description of the items part of the item number. And I remember coming into a project where I think this was even Nav or even some in BC, which is weird, is they brought those over, and it just annoyed the crap out of me, because here's the thing: people don't realize that you have an item number that has a description or maybe even a color of something or a variant of it as different item numbers. And so what happens is that when an organization wants to maybe run some um, analytics of, how do you maybe be more efficient with your items, or how many do you need to buy, it's very difficult, because then they have to maintain 6 different items of technically the same item, maybe slightly different color, right? Or maybe a description, or maybe it's a variant. So rather than using a variant in Business Central, they made it part of the description or the item number. And that's very annoying, because then you lose the traceability of analyzing that. So for example, if you're using like demand planning tool, you're no longer just paying attention to one item, you're paying attention to 6 items, and that continues to grow. I've seen one item and there's 10 different item numbers for technically the same thing. So that is not what not to do when you're moving to Business Central. Use the other tools or use the other parts of Business Central to accommodate that.
And that's
So
how I
that's that.
worked with someone that had 1.8 million items.
Yes.
I'm not even joking. They had 1.8 million items. I said, how do you even do that? Like, how do you even manage that? I'm not even kidding. They had over 1 million items.
Yeah, so we have something similar, and I wish our company understood how all the functions and nav worked at the time we went live with it. We sell one medical device, but we have separate part numbers for every single language that we ship to, which is a huge issue because there's no difference in the bombs, right? Like it's the exact same item. There is no difference in the manufacturing process. It's just the different language that gets loaded on the system. So if we had learned about variants way back when, then we wouldn't need to have 30 different part numbers for the same product, which makes
So
pulling.
you're one of those, Kris.
Yes, I am one of those, and at this point, it's too late to change it. But
See,
I will
it's
say,
common. It's very common.
That is
It is.
very common.
Yeah,
It's
and so
insane.
it's insane because, like you said, though, it makes reporting virtually impossible. Because how in the world am I going to be able to do, MRP, for example, when
Yes.
I have 30 different item numbers for the exact same product, right?
Yes.
It makes reporting so difficult.
Yeah, you lose trends and you lose the ability to use, forecasting because now you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
different histories of
Yep.
technically the same item, but then you got to consider different histories. Just managing that is just mind-boggling. It's
Do
a
you,
Yeah,
technical
it's
debt that you don't want. I would say that.
yeah.
absolutely.
So
Do you have
thankfully for we're working on our next generation product right now. And so I told them from the get go, I said, look, we have to make this work how Business Central functions. I was like, we are not going to have 100 different item numbers for all these different languages and things like that. So once you get that history and once you understand how the system works, moving forward it works well. But we're small, so I can make those changes very quickly. But for like Brad, like you mentioned, 1.8 million items. I don't even know how you even update that.
That was challenging for a number of things. That was 1.8 million over years, and they thought that they needed them, and they tried to do cleanup, and they would make, as Kris had mentioned, they'd make variants for variants for variants when they were all in essence the same item, and then it just snowballs, and it quickly changes where one item can be. If you make 6 different variants, you think about that. You have 6 different variants, and then you may have another slight variant. I'm not even going to get into why they made all those items because they could have just. They sometimes they'd make an item because they had to change the bill for one order instead of
Have you
just.
have you ever seen anyone that uses variants for revision numbers?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we used to be one of those shops. We don't do that anymore, thankfully. But that's definitely going to go on my list of another way to not use Business Central is please don't use variants for revision numbers. If it's the same form fit function and like you got to update your engineering drawing because you like change something on the title block or like in the notes, like that doesn't need to be a new variant. But some of our items, I swear, we have like 30 different revisions as variants in there, and that just makes inventory management impossible to deal with.
It's
You,
it's all a good idea when you're
yeah.
talking about it, but when you see the practical use of it,
That's where it takes
You can block out variants now though in Business Central. So if
you.
if you can have a ton of variants, it's like we don't sell those no more. We sold all of those different variants. We're making these new ones now because they said like revisions. You can block them so don't choose it, but it is hard to maintain. You're right, Kris. Regardless, it's you have to think about that long term. Your technical debt of what you do now can have a long term effects
Yep.
moving forward. Because look, if you hired someone new and you have all those different items, there's a higher risk for them to make a mistake because then now they have to remember tribal knowledge from somebody that hey, these items are technically all the same. But if you have someone else coming new, they're not going to know all this tribal knowledge. So you got to make sure that, as you're maybe growing, your organization's growing, anybody that's coming in new, they have to, they should be able to easily pick up Business Central and understand how it flows and not have to worry about, oh crap, I got to deal with 1.8 million SKUs and I don't know which one to choose. And you can make a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's one of the big things too between both Nav and Business Central, because I think BC 25 is that where they made the checkbox in the item card where it says variant mandatory. So if you do have variants, then you have to actually select one when you put it on a line, whether it's a production order, a purchase order, or anything like that. So historically, when we were on Nav, that was one of our biggest pitfalls was people would forget to actually select the variant when they were producing something. So that's just another reason for people to upgrade is you get new features like that definitely help with business flows.
Yeah, certainly. Brad, how about you? What's your what not to do in Business
what
Central
not to do? My what not to do would be
or not use it for?
I think it would be a two-part for it. And one is not understand how the system, the first one would be, and they go together, understand how the application works and go through the motions of using the application before wanting to make an extension or customize it. And also in that, validate why you're doing something in your business processes, because it will lead to unnecessary modifications. It's always well, in the old system, we used to do it this way. In the old system, we used to do it this way. Well, why do you do it that way? I don't know. So then they want to make Business Central work the same exact way before they even understand how Business Central works, because it is a very powerful application that can support smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large businesses, because they have a number of features and options in there. And I've seen countless times where individuals, before they even go live, have a list of extensions that they want to have or enhancements that they want to have to the application before they even properly used it, without taking the time to do it, because everything the first time you do it, when it's foreign to you, will be challenging. So you have to go through and get to be able to have the vision to see how you may be able to gain some efficiencies, because I cannot tell you how many times I've seen extensions box somebody in the future because they had to have this specific modification when they really didn't fully understand how Business Central worked. So they now either need to enhance that extension because it's so critical now to their part of their processes that they've changed that it's difficult to remove, and they end up enhancing that, or they have to take that extension out completely, which in all of those cases, it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money, and it can cause a disruption to you. So what not to do is jump in thinking that you need to replicate exactly what you have without first having understanding of it. And also, most importantly, as we're talking about, why are you doing something that you're doing? It's a good time to revalidate your business processes. And it's not to say that something that somebody's doing is wrong, but more often than not, I find somebody's doing something because of a limitation at some point in the past. So now we can print a PDF, now we can email, where before people used to print reports and do this. So if you had a requirement to print reports on paper, we're talking about the printing in the paper, that was because the PDFs didn't exist maybe then. Or if you had other processes, technologies now is advanced and you can do it differently. So it's kind of a two-part, but that's my what not to do in Business Central is want extensions before you exhaust using the base application, because that may inhibit your growth with the application in the future, because you can put yourself in a box. Not to say all extensions are doing it that way. I'm not trying to shy away from it. I'm just saying be a little more logical and methodical through your process.
Spot on.
So,
when you said about printing, I remember now a company I worked with, they said they printed because it was for them to archive and as a backup. That's what they told me. So I was like, wow,
that's
okay.
I swear that's why we do it too. I mean, every CFO I've worked with has said that that's the reason that they print. I'm like, that's not, like, printing doesn't set it in stone.
just to jump back with one thing you said, and it's actually what you talked about with the variants. I looked while we were talking, and it was October of 2022.
It's been out.
So it's been out for a while, but it made me think, which version was it? Because October of 2022 would probably be version 23. No,
yeah, I think it's 23.
21.
It's
21.
Well, 21, because it's the years get messed up, because now we're at 25, or it will be 26 in April. Or will be yes, 25 was in October of 25. So that means 24 would be in April of 25. Let me go back. 23 would be in October of. See, this is what we have to do. I really wish that in the documentation where they talk about the features, where they put the general availability, they put the date. I wish they put the version number.
Yeah.
Right. I just wish it was so easy on that one page, instead of saying public preview September 1st, 2022. General availability October 1st, 2022. Just put 2022 wave 2 version 21.
Yeah, 22.22 or something. 2022.2.
I've had that it just drives me crazy because they add so many features, and I have conversations with individuals. And now with Business Central having both an online and on-premises version for those individuals that need to have on-premises versions, I talk with them, and sometimes I have to remember which feature came out when, because it may not be in their version or not. And if you go to look it up, I literally have to do similar to what we just talked about. Okay, October 1st, 2022. I have to go find a list where somebody may already have that list, or I have to go back and search now, okay, where is it on the documentation? Because even grouping in the documentation, it just says 22 release wave plan 2, but you don't know the actual version number.
Yeah, so we are also on-prem, and I tell you what, that is the most frustrating thing for me, is going to read about some new exciting feature in Business Central, and then they have like some footer that says not available on-prem. And it's so frustrating to me.
That's another one of those challenges now, with there being a divergence between functionality on some of it. Not to say that on-premises isn't fully functional. Well, I don't want to say fully functional, isn't fully capable of supporting a business, but there are features now, and I understand why, for a lot of them, if not all of them, why they're not available on premises. A lot of times it's security is usually one of the biggest reasons why they don't have it available. But I agree with you. I wish there was a list to say, okay, this is on-prem, this is not, and you're done. It just makes it challenging.
I spent like a solid 2 months trying to figure out how to make Power Automate work on-prem, which it doesn't, by the way. But there is literally nothing in their documentation that says this does not work on-prem.
So that would be something not to do.
That's another one.
What, not be on-prem?
Hey, on Friday of last week, my boss actually signed our contract to move from on-prem to cloud. So,
excellent,
fantastic.
Everyone has their reason for using specific versions, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But on premises versus online, in my opinion, online has a little bit more of an advantage.
I can't really see a way or a reason to use on-prem these days, really. I mean, like we wanted to enable MFA in order to sign into BC, and we're on-prem. So I mean, historically we were only on-prem just so that way, in theory, you could pull the internet right from the building, and we could still manufacture, right? I mean, in theory, that's what we were going for, but once you enable MFA and you're using Microsoft's MFA services, no matter what, you're going to have internet. So the benefits of staying on-prem just don't really make sense anymore.
Yes. No, I think they're getting fewer. Early on, I could understand some apprehension to going online. Everyone has their arguments, so it's challenging.
I think I've been through quite a few of those.
That is interesting, though, for staying on-prem. That is one of the most common things that I get, is that they want to be able to in case the internet goes down, they still want to be able to access that, especially if you have locations that are, satellite locations. Maybe you have a store or things like that. And my unless there's no legacy requirement that you have to have access to SQL or whatnot, and that's the only way for you to interact with it, or for some odd reason, I always mention that it is cheaper to get a backup connection than trying to maintain an entire infrastructure, just because maybe you go offline. And that's always been one of my solution to that, because you can get a backup LTE or backup 5G or even Starlink for a lot less than trying to maintain a full infrastructure. And you're gonna you have to have a person, you have to have a sysadmin, you have to have a network admin to maintain all of that, when you just maybe just do it in Business Central online, and that would, and then to get a backup connection to all those locations, it's still much cheaper. I still find it hard to believe.
I just did a cost benefit analysis for migrating us from on-prem to the cloud. I mean, there's so much cost with you maintaining things on-prem that you don't have to have when you just move to SaaS, right? I mean, Like we are on SQL 2019. We're going to have to move to what's, I think, SQL 2022 moving forward. We're a lot of our servers on 2012 R2. So, these are just, additional costs that we have to then factor into staying on-prem when the value add really just isn't there anymore.
The overhead of using it on premise is you need to have a really good justification, in my opinion, to use it on premises because, like you said, all of the licensing for the Windows Server, licensing for SQL, again, you may have some discounts and rates in there. I'm not saying whatever. But then you also have to pay for the Business Central application, whereas if you have Business Central Online, you have your advanced or your essentials or your premium, basically, right? Or you can have a limited user too, and that's what you have. You're paying by user, and you have 3 choices. So
that's where we're at now. We have our server. For me to get a new server with new Windows Server 2022, I think is the latest, and then plus the new SQL version, plus hardware costs, I think it was over like 40 grand, and I'm like, right.
That pays for your licenses for years.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But then also the store, like the other argument I hear is storage, right? It depends on your storage space because with Business Central Online, the only cost, I don't want to say the only cost, but a cost that's in addition to your user cost could be your storage cost depending upon the number of space that you use. But I've looked at it, and if you factor in the storage cost to what it would be if you had to pay the $40,000 and then the maintenance on the $40,000, it starts to, you have to compare apples and apples, in my opinion, of what you're getting. I'm not going to say that, the cost being separate can be costly, but also your disaster recovery internally can be costly. It's your electricity, and it's not only that, but it's also your footprint within your building for your real estate space. So now most people are taking up an office to house their servers, where you could have there's just a lot of cost to it. Whereas now, if you're in the
and if you're an organization that is maybe looking into on-prem or still looking into on-prem and maybe considering Business Central Online, a good place to learn how people do this, if what they decide, right, Kris? You got to go to Summit, right? You got to go to the conference to have these conversations of somebody that may have gone through that path, like you, Kris. Whoever's listening to this, and so I'm going to go find Kris at Summit and ask him what that looks like and why did they move? Why are they moving to Business Central Online? So, with Summit, for those that are still, maybe haven't registered yet, Kris, can you tell us a little bit more about registration for Summit? When is that happening? A little bit more background on that especially for first timers.
Yeah, so registration is actually live right now. And I want to say, I think at the end of this month is when registration goes up. So if you just navigate to dynamicscommunities.com, you will see, and I think let me see, I think it's the top right-hand corner, you're going to see your Summit registration link. And you have the ability to go there and go ahead and register. And what that gets you is full access to the conference. So you have the ability to go to as many sessions as you want. There's no limitations or restrictions there. But you also have the ability to register for the Academy sessions. So a little bit about Academy is these are more deep dives into, the specific modules within Business Central. So you can go to Academy classes for, and I think they have one for Copilot now. I think there's a specific track. They also have the ability for you to go to like manufacturing, finance, supply chain, pretty much any sort of core module that's inside of Business Central, they will probably have an Academy class for. And, my very first year going to Summit, I actually went to Academy, and it's my only time I've ever been to Academy. And I did the deep dive on manufacturing. And I will say that is the most informative sessions that I have ever been to. I think it was 2 days back then in Orlando back in 2018. And what's really cool about Academy is it literally is like you're in like a college course. and you have an instructor there who is, teaching you how to go through every single module or every single area within whatever specific academy class that you're taking. And you either have to bring your own laptop to be able to connect to a test version of Business Central, or they provide them for you. And you learn so much during those sessions. So yeah, so Academy is a separate registration fee from Summit, but highly recommend it.
Excellent. And the registration is open. It does increase, as you mentioned, on April 1st. So I'm not certain when we'll have this one released, because it's running up close to that time. We have to go through and
by the time they listen to this, it's like, oh.
Well, they may listen to it in the future, and it may be past. But the knowledge on Summit is still valuable on what you can get from there. So, and Summit also this year is October 19th to 23rd in Orlando, Florida. So I know a lot of parts of the country are getting chilly at that time of the year. So Orlando's usually not a bad place to be in October. It's starting to get hot, but it's not blazing hot. Wait, excuse me. Starting to get cool, but it's not freezing. Jeez. Rewind. Everybody know what I meant to say, right?
So I will say, while we are encouraging people to register for Summit right now, I do have to tell this quick story about my very first year of going to Summit. Our partner at the time had recommended that we go, just because everybody was brand new to NAV, essentially, at the time. And we registered so late that the only hotel that we could get in Orlando was the Dolphin Hotel in downtown Disney. And it was the cheapest option. So me and 5 of my other coworkers got to stay essentially at the boardwalk in Disney at a Disney hotel just because we registered so late. So not that I'm encouraging this, but you might be able to get yourself a good deal and be able to stay at a Disney hotel if you wait to register.
hopefully you don't, because this is at the Gaylord, right? So it's nice.
It was at the Gaylord in 2018 too, but we registered. I want to say we registered in like September. And
you're really late.
Yeah, so literally the only hotel that we could get was the Swan and Dolphin Hotel, and at the boardwalk in Disney. And I tell you what, it was funny because it was me and 4 or 5 other of my coworkers, and they were all my age except for one of them, and she was like a 60-some-odd-year-old accountant. And it was funny because the power went out the very first night that we were there, and the hotel ended up giving us each $50 gift cards to go to the neighboring hotel just to go like chill at the bar and like hang out until the power came back on. And it was funny because she brought some like really old like dice game. I don't even remember what game this was. And so there's like, a bunch of young kids, this older lady, and we're just sitting at the bar until like midnight. And everybody was just like looking at us, like having this great time, playing this game, just hanging out while the power was out. So
wow. Yeah, hopefully we have no power outages.
Well, October is beautiful in Orlando. But I don't even know this anymore. But well, Kris, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. Thank you for all that you do for the community, and thank you for sharing the information about Community Summit. I'm looking forward to seeing you and anyone else and everyone else that's listening there. If anyone would like to contact you for more information on how to attend Summit or more about their Business Central implementation, how can they contact you?
Your voice totally changed.
Yeah, I hope nobody from work is going to listen to this.
Nobody listens to this. It's just the 3 of us anyway, so don't worry about it. That's why my voice, I just I don't even know what happened. This is just one of those episodes, but it's okay.
For the second time? You're going through puberty for the second time?
That's what happens. You get older. You go through changes twice in your life, right? Isn't it 3 times in your life? But yeah, I think I'm at that stage of going through puberty again. But how can someone get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I actually did just start up my own LLC this last weekend. So I have a new email address. Thank
Congrats.
you. Thanks. So yeah, you can contact me at Kris at the 365resource.com. And yeah, I will get that and be sure to respond to you quickly.
Kris365resource.com. We do have the profile page for guests. Yours is on there, I believe, or I send you the link. You can fill it out with all that information. So we'll attach that to the episode as well, too.
Yeah, that sounds
again,
great.
and we look forward to seeing you in October. Talk with you soon. Ciao, ciao.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.